in the spiritual world, but he also expands himself and he appears here on earth every 4,320,000,000 years. And he comes out of his love for us. He wants to show us his pastimes, conquer our minds, give pleasure to our hearts. And also he wants to attract us. When Krishna comes down, he manifests, he brings down, wherever Krishna appears, is that spiritual world. And he creates this complete picture of that spiritual world right here on planet Earth, just to attract us to that spiritual world, just to show us how we can enjoy with him on the spiritual platform in the spiritual world, to draw ourselves, because in so many ways we have so many attachments to this world. So Krishna wants to show us a world which is just an amazing world, where there's never a dull moment. It's just to attract us, to manifest within us a desire to want to actually return to our real home in that spiritual world. So during his pastimes in Vrindavan, we see where he steals butter from the ladies, the cowherd ladies, dances with his girlfriends, plays with his cowherd friends as their dear companion. He exhibits his most extraordinary qualities and pastimes. So these pastimes of Krishna are continually going on, not just here, but both in the spiritual world and also the material world, in the material universes. In this material world, his pastimes, it is said, manifest one moment after another, which means that Krishna's appearance may manifest in this universe at one moment, and immediately after his birth, his pastime, his birth is manifesting in the next universe. And there's like 40 million universes in this material creation. So it's like Krishna's eternal roadshow. His pastimes are going on continuously. So he simply appears and he simply disappears in innumerable universes, just as the sun appears and disappears during the day. So in such pastimes, Krishna, he always behaves like the most beautiful, charming, young cowherd boy, the eternal son of Nanda Maharaj. Now we read about Krishna in different pastimes, different leelas, sometimes as a baby, sometimes as a young boy. And sometimes, when he went to Dwarka, he became the king of the Yadus. He married 16,108 princesses. But his eternal form, Krishna's actual eternal form in the spiritual world, is that of a 7 to 10-year-old boy. So he descends along with his eternal associates, like I said, to display this complete picture of the spiritual world where this pure love and devotion prevail. So although Krishna appears to be born of a mother, Mother Yasoda, and grow from a baby to a blooming youth, he's not actually born at all. This is one of the mysteries of Krishna's appearance. He only appears to take birth. Factually, he's never born and he never dies. He has a transcendental, eternal form or body which eternally exists. So his appearance and disappearance are completely transcendental and mystical, supernatural, you could say. So although Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj are Krishna's eternal mother and father, we know that Krishna actually, when he first appeared, he appeared as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki. And this is interesting because Vasudeva and Devaki actually spent, it is said, 12,000 celestial years performing very difficult austerities because they wanted to have a special son, exactly like the Lord himself. So to fulfill their desire, Krishna simultaneously appeared as the son of Devaki and Yasoda. So, when he first appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva, he first appeared in his Vishnu form. And the reason Prabhupada explains why he did that, just to prove to them that he had fulfilled their desire to have the Lord as their son. And of course, when he first appeared, he appeared in his beautiful four-armed Vishnu form. Then he transformed himself into his two-armed Krishna form, baby Krishna. Then he instructed Vasudeva to take him to Vrindavan and exchange him with the daughter just born of Yasoda. So Sanatana Goswami, in his Vaishnava Tishani, he explains that how at that time, due to Krishna's mystic potency, Yasoda, he actually appeared simultaneously as the son of Devaki, and he also appeared as the son of Yasoda. But by Krishna's mystic potency, Yasoda was not aware that actually she'd given birth to a second child, Krishna. So when Vasudeva arrived at Yasoda's house, following Krishna's instructions, he placed the Krishna born of Devaki on the bed, took Yasoda's daughter, without even noticing that the second Krishna was born of Yasoda. For the moment he actually placed Devaki's Krishna on the bed, he merged with Yasoda's Krishna, became one baby Krishna. It's explained in the Vaishnava Tishani. So soon after Krishna's appearance in Vrindavan, all the inhabitants joyfully celebrated Krishna's birth ceremony. So that Goloka Vrindavan here on earth, it's a direct expansion of that Goloka Vrindavan that's present in the spiritual world. And actually it is said it's a direct expansion of Krishna himself. So it's here in Goloka Vrindavan where Krishna just eternally enjoys himself with his eternal associates, where he attracts everyone with his all-attractive, most beautiful form, his all-attractive, melodious flute playing, his all-attractive, glorious pastimes, and his all-attractive, like, sweetness of love with his pure devotees. So it's here in Vrindavan where Krishna just expands this pleasure potency and creates these amazing, thrilling, transcendental pastimes full of suspense and dynamic action. And he does this out of an act of love for the infinite spiritual happiness of his pure-hearted devotees. By Krishna's Svarup Shakti, he manifests himself at different stages of his pastimes, from infancy to early youth in Vrindavan. And why did he do that? So that he and his devotees may taste different varieties of bliss generated by those different pastimes. Just as like he was a young baby, he's having pastimes with Yasoda and Nanda and the cowherd people, and as he grows older, different pastimes are taking place. So here in Goloka Vrindavan, we just find this incredible festival of joy going on, where we find, as I said, Krishna eternally residing in his eternal pre-youth form of a 7 to 10-year-old boy. And, for all living entities to be attracted to Krishna is completely natural. I mean, the very name Krishna means the all-attractive one. Krishna has the potency to attract the mind, to attract the heart, to attract the senses of every conscious living entity. And Madhurya, or sweetness, is said to be the very essence of Sri Krishna's nature. And that sweetness of Krishna's beauty, it is said, it creates a daily festival for the eyes. It's said that every feature of Krishna's transcendental form is likened to a tidal wave of luscious splendour that just inundates his devotees' senses and just drenches their hearts with unlimited satisfaction. And of course, we understand that ultimately everything about Krishna is just simply wonderful and adorable. And the name Krishna, is the Lord's original, supreme, most powerful name. And even though Krishna has so many different names, but this name Krishna expresses the sum total of his infinite qualities and characteristics. And he also has many other names, so many names, which have different meanings. And the reason why Krishna has so many names is because he has so many transcendental qualities and so many transcendental characteristics. And he also has so many different dealings and relationships with his devotees. And therefore he's known by so many different names. And each name refers to either a different quality, a different characteristic, a different relationship that he has with a different devotee. And of course, another famous name of Krishna is Bhagavan. It means the source of all excellences. And the Vedas actually list those excellences. He has unlimited beauty. His beauty is always expanding. Unlimited strength. Unlimited knowledge. He's the very source of all knowledge. And so much strength. I mean, he's systematically conducting all the affairs of trillions of universes, both spiritual and material, without a flaw, simply by his all-pervasive energy, just by the raising of his eyebrow. His unlimited wealth. I mean, everything belongs to Krishna in the three worlds. He has unlimited fame. Of course, some people say, well, Krishna's not so famous. I mean, there's not so many Hare Krishnas in the world. But actually, people living in this world are just a very minority group of people. Actually, when you take in consideration the spiritual world, the heavenly planets, they're all devotees of Krishna. Actually, the Hare Krishnas they constitute the majority of living entities in this creation. And Krishna's fame is glorified in all those universes and worlds. And he has unlimited renunciation or independence. And Krishna, he possesses these amazing excellences to an infinite degree. So it is said, that one who was attracted to the beauty of Krishna, one who is attracted to the beauty of Radha and Krishna cannot be attracted to the false beauty of this material world. And, in the Vedas we hear about descriptions of Krishna's beautiful form. Of course, very few people really know who God is. You could talk to, so many people. And, I mean, before we were devotees, we may have been wondering who God is, but I mean, who would have thought that God is a 10-year-old cowherd boy who lives in Vrindavan, who's controlling all the universe, is creating, sustaining? Who would have thought? Actually, as one Maharaji gave me a class in Mayapur, he said, how is it that Prabhupada came and convinced us that God is this little blue cowherd boy playing the flute? Then he said, because was our Prabhupada able to convince people that and just get them to accept that? And then he answered that because Prabhupada was so totally convinced and such a pure devotee of Krishna, and so connected to Krishna that without a doubt, when Prabhupada said Krishna is God, everyone he must be. So I said, Krishna's body is a city of attractive features. It's sweeter than sweet. His face is said to be sweeter still. And the gentle smile on his moon-like face is like the rays of the moonshine. And his complexion is the color of a blue lotus flower or a sapphire. And he's very enchanting. And he wears these yellow silken garments, his long dark curling hair, a handsome crown. He's decorated with a peacock feather and many flowers. And on his chest he wears a locket. And in that locket he has a picture of Srimati Radharani. And also Radharani, she also wears a locket with a picture of Krishna in there. And he's got a beautiful necklace of pearls, the Kaustubha gem, which shines like lightning. So he said, Krishna is just this ocean of nectarine handsomeness. And he speaks many charming words that delight his pure devotees. And everyone's just so attracted and so attached to Krishna in Vrindavan. We see that Krishna, he's just drowning the inhabitants of Vrindavan in pools of ecstatic love. The elderly, like Nanda and Yasoda and friends, like Sridham and Subal and other cowherd boys, the gopi ladies, Radharani and her associates, even the cows, the calves, the birds, the flowers even, fruits, trees, the clouds, the mountains. They're all just completely attached to Krishna and completely attracted to Krishna. And we see that it's an amazing, this whole Vrindavan Leela. We see Krishna, although he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's God himself. Here in Raj, he simply wants to be loved, like the darling little boy of Nandi and Yasoda. Therefore here in Goloka Vrindavan, his original eternal abode, he doesn't play as God, where people worship him with awe and reverence. In Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna, he lays down his Godhead and his kingly crown to walk barefooted along the Jamuna, herding his beloved cows, joking and playing with his dear friends who love and serve him unendingly with natural affection. And they don't even know he is God. They don't even know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they just treat him as just a playmate, a friend, a helpless child, a handsome boyfriend. And we see that this gives Krishna the greatest pleasure. Actually, it delights him. It delights him to associate with these pure devotees in this way, in complete familiarity. He said that actually he eternally hankers to taste the ecstatic bliss derived from the unalloyed pure love of his devotees. And of course in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna declares that his pure devotees the pure devotees are always in my heart, and I am always in them. They do not know anyone else but me, and I do not know anyone else but them. So although Krishna is the supreme controller of everything and everyone, he allows himself to come under the control of his pure devotees. He becomes conquered and subservient to the love of his pure devotees. So this is the amazing thing, that this Vrindavan Leela, these Vrindavan pastimes, they demonstrate that although generally people worship God with awe and reverence, he is more pleased when the devotees render him devotional service with this natural affection. So in our bhakti scriptures, they explain that in the transcendental world, we all have an eternal spiritual form. And we utilize this form to serve the Lord directly out of pure love and devotion. So in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual world, everyone has their personal, individual position in one of the 5 different kinds of loving reciprocations with Krishna. You've got Shanta Ras, love and awe and reverence, adoration. We've got Dasya Ras, love as a servant. Sakya Ras, love as a friend. Vatsalya Ras, love as a parent. Madhurya Ras, the mood of a lover. So to achieve this most elevated, wonderful, loving reciprocation with these pure devotees, Krishna, what he does is he keeps them all in illusion by the power of his mystic control, his yoga maya. And therefore, he won't allow them to know that he's God. Thus, as I said, they just treat him with natural affection and complete familiarity as a playmate, a friend, a helpless child, a handsome boyfriend. So, actually, Srila Prabhupada, in one purport, he explains that ultimate devotional service performed in the spiritual world, in one's eternal spiritual form, in direct association with Krishna, can also be practiced here, on the earth, in this material world. And Prabhupada explains that this Hare Krishna movement was actually established for that purpose. To teach people how to turn their natural service attitude towards Krishna and revive their eternal loving relationship with Krishna. And deep down, what we are hankering for, what everyone is hankering for in their hearts, is a perfect loving relationship, which means that we're hankering for Krishna. Why? Because only Krishna can accommodate everyone's loving endeavours perfectly. And he'll always reciprocate perfectly our love and devotion, whatever little bit of devotion we offer to him. Whether it's a big offering or a small offering, Krishna reciprocates. You know, Krishna is that personal, loving and lovable aspect of the Supreme. And he's offering his love to each and every one of us so intimately and so perfectly that each and every one of us will think that actually we're his most beloved. So it's we should learn to become situated in our Nitya Swarup, our eternal spiritual identity, by identifying ourselves as eternal servants of Krishna. And we can go back to Godhead. So in Vrindavan, you know, Krishna has this transcendental day. You know, each morning Krishna and Balaram, the cowherd boys, they go into Nanda Maharaj's cowshed. And it's a very opulent cowshed. It's not like our cowshed. It has beautiful crystal walls, pure golden pillars ablaze with rubies, you know, and sapphires and diamonds. And when they milk the cows, they don't just milk them into plastic buckets. Actually, they milk them into pure golden buckets, pure golden pails. Sometimes we think of Vrindavan as just a very simple village, but actually a lot of opulence there as well. And Krishna's father, he has 900,000 cows. You can imagine that, 900,000 cows. And Krishna, he knows the name of each and every cow. So when it's time for milking, he would call their name. And they would respond by mooing, you know, the cows. And as the cows come into the cowshed, they would just lovingly surround Krishna. And Krishna would be just lovingly hugging the cows and caressing the cows. You know, Krishna loves the cows as much as they love him. Actually, there's one story where the cows actually heard that Krishna was going to go barefoot. He was taking this vow to go barefoot around Vrindavan. So that night, all the cows and bulls, they went out and they went all around Vrindavan, and with their hard iron-like hooves. They smashed all the rocks and pebbles and stones into dust. Nice, soft, powdery dust for Krishna to walk on. Because they didn't want Krishna to hurt his feet, standing on the stones. Actually, when you go to Vrindavan, you go to places, you see that powdery dust. I think it's still there. So after, they would love it, Krishna and Balaram, the cowherd boys, would milk the cows by joking and laughing. And after milking the cows, they would return home. They'd bathe and dress. And then they'd all proceed to Nanda Maharaj's royal dining hall. So, they would enjoy a big breakfast feast cooked by Srimati Radharani. And, Krishna would sit in the center and all the cowherd boys would sit around him. And then while they were eating, Krishna would give great pleasure to his friend by telling funny jokes and sweet words that make his friends laugh. And then, actually sometimes Krishna, he knows his favorite food of all his friends. And sometimes, when the Mother Yasoda wasn't looking, he'd take that food, just like Madhumangala. He knows Madhumangala likes ladus. So when Mother Yasoda wasn't looking, he'd take a laddu from his plate and throw it to Mangala, playfully toss it to Madhumangala. Or he'd know another friend likes something else, he'd get some off his plate and toss it to him. He'd make sure Mother Yasoda wasn't watching, It's pretty amazing getting the Mahaprashadam off Krishna's plate. And after breakfast they would enter the Vrindavan forests, herding the cows, playing their flutes and bugles, and dancing and singing and wrestling and playing games and swimming in the lakes and rivers and joking with one another, having a great time. Then around 11 a.m. Krishna, he kind of tricks his friends, then he slips away to meet up with Srimati Radharani and her friends. And together they would enjoy these unlimited nectarine pastimes together, picking flowers together, riding on lotus swings and strolling through the forest, singing beautiful songs, decorating one another with flowers, drinking honey nectars, eating forest fruits, playing board games and water splashing contests, and they used to have water squirting wars, resting on beautiful flower petal beds. And then about 3:30 p.m, Krishna goes off to call the cows home. And then Radharani, she goes off to Java to cook special sweets for Krishna's evening snacks. And then, Krishna goes home, he calls the cows, leads them home. Pretty amazing, actually, we hear about that, when he calls the cows home, not just the cows come from the forest, from the pasturing ground, but all the living entities in Vrindavan, the little squirrels, the deers, the little birds, they all come back, they all follow Krishna, the cows, and they all come back. And they just wait there, because they think that without Krishna and Balaram in the forests of Vrindavan and the pasturing grounds, that those forests and pasturing grounds are just like a desert. So they all come back, and they just wait there, outside the village of Vrindavan. And then in the morning when Krishna goes back out to herd the cows, Krishna and Balaram, the cowboys, then all the little animals and birds, and they all go back out. They follow Krishna out, back into the forest. So, at 6 p.m, Krishna and Balaram, they bathe and dress and they enjoy those sweet snacks cooked by Radharani and sent to. Then Krishna and Balaram, they go off to milk the cows. And then they would return and they'd go into the palace temple of Nanda Maharaj for the evening arti. And then they would enjoy a special supper cooked by Yasoda. And after supper they would go to the palace auditorium, the big auditorium there in the palace of Nanda Maharaj. And they'd be entertained, you know, with dramas and dancing and music and recitations and mantra chanting, special magic shows. Every day, you know, Krishna, he's a supreme enjoyer. And after Mother Yasoda, he feeds Krishna warm milk, sends him up to bed. But then, Krishna, he only pretends to go to sleep. He secretly slips away to meet Radharani and gopis. And then we see that Radha and Krishna and the gopis, they wander through the Vrindavan forest along the Jamuna, singing beautiful songs, and the amazing rasa dance takes place, where Krishna expands himself into thousands of Krishnas, and he's dancing with thousands of gopis, you know, whirling and spinning in time to the accompaniment of music played by hundreds of gopis. Actually, they danced for the entire night of Lord Brahma. It's 4,320,000,000 years they danced. But by Krishna's mystic power, he packed that whole 4,320,000,000 years into one evening. So the more we hear and read about Krishna and chant his holy name and sincerely try and serve him, you know, with love and devotion, the more we become attached to Krishna. And the more we're able to enter into a very personal relationship with him and realize that actually Krishna, actually he's our supreme beloved. And I'm his tiny servant. We stop trying to compete with Krishna. And we start to come to that realization that actually I'm just his tiny servant. Let me surrender to Krishna. And you know, as I said, you know, when our love for Krishna begins to awaken, it just illuminates every aspect of our life. And you know, everyone in this world ultimately is looking for the formula for perfect happiness. And by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, he's given us this formula. How we can experience a happiness which is beyond just this body and mind of this material world. The spiritual happiness, the happiness of the soul, the inner happiness, which comes when we re-establish our loving relationship with Krishna. Yeah. Okay, Krishna Janmashtami on Wednesday. A little prelude, you do, building up to this very auspicious day. And does anyone have any questions they'd like to ask? Okay. Oh yeah. Oh, wait.
Thank you for a beautiful class. Very absorbing. You were saying that Srila Prabhupada said we should practice those, you were mentioning those 5 relationships, and we should practice them in this life. And you were also explaining how Yoga Maya covers all the residents of Vrindavan so that they always have that concept, like the Kavan boys think that they're equal to Krishna, that the gopis can fight with Krishna, etc. So, but in this material world, because we're covered by Mahamaya, we have a different concept. We have a concept that's more, you know, respectful and, you know, like Srila Prabhupada taught us to worship the deities with a lot of respect. So, you know, how do you sort of reconcile that, you know, starting to try to actually serve Krishna in a particular mood when our mood in the material world is always going to be covered a little with that.
Definitely, we do. We worship the deities in that mood of awe and reverence like that, Krishna. But actually I read in one purport where Prabhupada said that we may have a certain attraction to a certain relationship with Krishna. I mean, just, I don't know, it's like you might be charmed by a certain aspect of Krishna's pastimes, like as a cowherd boy. And so, this is just an example. So Prabhupada said you can meditate on that. You can think about that while you're performing, you're doing your sadhana, you're doing your service, you're trying to purify your heart, you're trying to become Krishna conscious. While you're performing your regular sadhana, you can. Prabhupada said you can meditate and think about that relationship with Krishna. And then Prabhupada said, in your next life, if you're qualified, you'll go to the spiritual world, and you'll take up that role in the spiritual world. So it's like he said that. He used the word simultaneously. And simultaneously perform your regular sadhana, and at the same time you can meditate on that relationship with Krishna as a cowherd boy, or as some people. And actually you see that. I notice that even some devotees, they have a natural parental relationship with Krishna. I see that especially amongst the Indian Matajis. They have these little Bal Krishnas, and for them Krishna is just a little baby. And they just want to feed him and serve him and make sure he's warm. They put the little blankets around him at night. And some people, they just think, oh man, I just want to be a cowherd boy. Just imagine that, just playing with Krishna every day and having a great time and being Krishna's friend. It may seem a bit superficial in this neophyte stage to think like that, but Prabhupada, he said that in that purport, that you can, if you have a certain attraction for something like sort of some relationship with Krishna, you can meditate on that, and just kind of, and you can go to that, you can be, It's amazing when you think about people that are trying to perfect their life through yoga systems, through following some religious process. And it can take thousands and thousands and thousands of lifetimes to achieve a certain level of perfection in those aspects. And by the mercy of coming in contact with a pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada, and learning the process of Krishna consciousness, we can achieve perfection in this very lifetime. It's inconceivable, And so it's our sincerity, that really counts, which means that, despite all the ups and downs and difficulties we have to go through and persevere with in our spiritual life, if we just stick to the process, that's showing our sincerity to Krishna. It's very pleasing to Krishna if we do that. And through that sincerity, by Prabhupada's mercy and the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, we can, at the end of this life, we can go back to our real home in the spiritual world. Gaur Govinda. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.